neck, no nothing. But the person, there was supposed to have been a witness. The witness was actually the girl's aunt, and she was the one that signed the Second Baker Act as well. They got like 5 people to sign the Second Baker Act. I think it was 5 or 6. It was like 5. I think it was 5 people that signed the Second Baker Act, and she was one of them that signed the Second Baker Act. Well, she was supposed to be a witness, which didn't happen because I was standing at the window and I saw the whole thing. My son wasn't even close enough to try and choke her. So anyway, so they got an officer to come out, and between the corruption going on, another officer they had on their side, I guess, evidently. And this same officer, well, what happened is, let me see if I can start over here, sorry about that. But the officer that came to arrest my son went to the neighbor's house to begin with. He went ahead and another officer pulled up in front of their house and was talking to the officer that came over to eventually arrest my son. And that officer that pulled up, one time when we found our phone was being tapped, our phone lines, I was trying to talk to that officer. That was the second officer that pulled up to talk to the one that arrested my son. And when I tried to talk to, when I tried to talk to him and ask him to have the neighbors, they all came around and circled around the police car, and I asked him if he could have them leave because this was between me and him, and I did not want the neighbors all to hear everything we were saying. And he got upset with me and said, well, if you don't get away from my car, I'll Baker Act you, and this one will go through. You know what I mean? So this officer, for some reason, was on their side. I have no idea why. And so he goes up and he talks to this officer that comes over to our house. And this officer came over to our house. I mean, we had a couple witnesses to prove that he did not, because there were a couple neighbors behind us that actually were there at the bus stop, and they know that our son didn't try to choke her. But we even had witnesses and everything to state that he was never choked her, or that he never tried to choke her and everything, but he arrested him anyway. And during that time, we had to go ahead and prove his innocence. We were offered arbitration, but if you go take arbitration, you're admitting that you're guilty. So I told my son, there's no way you're taking arbitration because you didn't do it. So we ended up having to prove his, that did make it to the state attorney's office, and it did go on to, we had to go ahead and fight and go to court and prove his innocence. And even while we were at the courthouse, all the neighbors that were harassing us came to the courthouse to try to put my son away. They were trying to prove, they were trying to, say they were witnesses, and I don't know what they were all saying, but they were all there trying to,
ruin a 12-year-old's life.
Yeah, to ruin a 12-year-old.
Aren't these wonderful citizens that are walking around down our streets every day?
Isn't that crazy?
It is. It's terrible.
It is. And I hope I was trying to bring up that story, that part of the story, but it's like a little complicated, in that issue. But it was really horrible. And then, now what I'll tell you is after telling you this, their plan, the reason why they did this was so they could file an injunction against our 2 kids. Okay? So what an injunction is, I'm not sure. You want me to explain to you what an injunction is?
Go ahead and tell the audience.
Okay, an injunction is to keep somebody away from somebody because they're supposed to be a danger to them. And the thing, in other words, if someone files an injunction on somebody, they can go ahead and if that person they filed an injunction against, does something to them, or they say they did something to them, they can have that person arrested. Well, they filed an injunction against our 2 kids so that they can lie on them, and our 2 kids will automatically be sent to juvenile. The officer, there were 2 officers that came, and they brought the injunction reports to our house and everything. I told them, I said, you cannot do this. Don't let these people get away with this. I said, if you do this, I have to go ahead and keep our kids home from school. I won't be able to send them to school because they'll lie on them, and then our kids will automatically be sent to juvenile. I said, I pleaded with the officer. But instead, they said, well, if you don't send your kids to school, you can go to jail. All that kind of stuff. I I don't care. But my kids are not going to school. They are not going to school if that injunction is enforced. So I ended up having to keep after I had the conversation with the officer, the one officer and everything, both officers walked over there across the street and they started talking to the neighbors and laughing with them and everything else. I mean, that really makes you feel pretty bad. You know what I mean?
Sure, the officers are usually involved. There's, always rogue officers, and I know with my case, there were several Chicago police officers involved, and every case I've heard about has some involvement with a police officer. Not everyone is dedicated to the badge that says they are.
Right.
And a lot of people are involved with Satanist groups and cults and things like that. And these are massive groups. These are groups that have time to stalk 24 hours a day. So, from my experience, a lot of them are Satanist and cult-operated, and people who just don't value our way of life, where they get up and they go to work and they value traditional family. It seems they're angry and they want to destroy that.
Right.
And you have a traditional family, you're married with children, and it's not surprising that officer would say something sexual to you, because from my reading and from what I understand, many gang stalkers try their best to destroy relationships. If you're married, they'll destroy your relationship. If you're going with somebody, they'll destroy your relationship. If you're single, they try to hold you that way. And that's very satanic to me. That's satanic ritual abuse, because what holidays do these people celebrate? They don't. They don't believe in traditional family. I don't think a Satanist could ever go home and say he's actually in love with his wife. I mean, how could somebody so evil have any love in their heart?
I know it. That's why I could never figure out. The thing of it is, though, is they would even carry in a Christmas tree at Christmas time, and I'm thinking to myself, how could they do that? What are they celebrating? Just because they want to give gifts to each other? They can't be celebrating Jesus' birth, because that is crazy.
Well, it may not even be. It may just be symbolic, so people think they are, or it could be they turned the tree upside down. I've heard Satanists do that. Or they're mocking it, or God knows what they thought of. These people will think of anything negative, anything bad in the world, death, anything morbid. These people think of it. This is what they do. They must be very, very unhappy people, because to sit and do this all day, what misery. I couldn't do it.
Crazy?
I couldn't do it.
I couldn't either. I just don't. Until this happened, I had no idea how bad it was. I mean, even through the organization, I contact people that are being harassed by neighbors and stuff, and even any harassment for that matter. But I started initially putting things online to look for people that are being harassed by neighbors because of what happened to us. And then after contacting you and learning about other harassment type things that's going on, that really interests me. That interests me enough to be able to do a lot of research on it. You know what I mean?
And what did you find from your research?
Well, I haven't, because I just recently learned about it. So I have, I've been trying to, I've just been learning about the microwave technology, different little bits and pieces about that. I'm just actually getting into the research. I actually want to get some documentation down and start really figuring out what is going on. It's really absolutely crazy out there. I never thought about electronic harassment when we were being harassed. Maybe they were doing something to us that I didn't even know about.
Well, if you have a microwave in your home, they can do it. And if they don't do it that way, they'll find some handheld unit and point it at your window. I mean, it's all over YouTube now. I've posted something, too, on the Edge, but it's all over YouTube about this microwave hearing. Anybody can find out now that it's happening. It's just,
I'd like to know
tragic.
how they're doing it, so I can know what to tell other people, how to help themselves or how to alleviate it somehow. It's crazy.
It's very difficult to alleviate, because I've been under it for some time, and I get the voices, every night. And these guys are pigs. I'm going to come right out and say it. That's all they talk about is sex. And I know who my perpetrators are, and some of them are in their 50s. And if you're in your 50s and you have to speak this way, something happened to you sexually as a child, or, you know, you were ignored by women, or, you know, because these are very abusive men. I'm dealing with very abusive men, and they're pilots, you know, so I know who they are, and I intend to keep going and fight.